Hey guys, so it's me, Nicolette Mashile, and today I want to talk about how do you aggressively get yourself out of debt. But remember that none of my videos constitute as financial advice. If you are looking for financial advice, please speak to somebody who is certified and registered with the FSCA. So let's jump straight into it. I'm just going to give you my tips because if I start discussing them, you know we're going to talk the whole day. I think the first things first is that you need to understand that you've got debt, and this thing of putting our heads in the ground and pretend like we don't have debt is really not going to assist us. So understanding that you've got debt that you really want to get out of is very important. But I think the second part of this entire thing is understanding that there is debt that you can manage and you don't necessarily need to get out of. And that's what we generally call secured debt, right? It's debt that is backed up by some sort of an asset, but the debt must still make sense, right? So it must be an asset that is going to either appreciate or is currently helping you in making money. And personally, I think that even a car, which is secured debt, is helping you make money, because if you cannot get to work, the job that you actually use to make money, then, we don't even need to go into that. Anyway, so I think the first thing you need to do is knowing how much you actually owe, and knowing of however much it is that you owe, which of it is really your expensive debt. So you need to sit down and create what we call a little table, a spreadsheet, whatever it is that you want to call it. That's what you need to create, right? On the one side, you need to write what it is that you actually, what the actual debt's name is, or what the creditor's name is, right? Then on the second column, remind yourself of what you actually bought, because with some of the credit, you will realize that really some of the things that you bought, you really shouldn't even have bothered to buy these things, right? That is also a good way for you to be able to recognize which of your debt was really unnecessary debt, right? And then in the third column, you need to write what the balance is of what you actually owe. The fourth column, you need to write what is the interest that you are being charged on that. And in the fourth column, what is the additional amount from your budget that you can allocate to that amount that you already are paying, right? And then on the fourth one, or you can swap these two around, on the fourth one, you need to write how much is that you're paying, the minimum payment that you're making every single month. And then in the last column, how much can you additionally put in there? Because the most important thing about debt and understanding debt is the fact that you are charged an interest on all your debt. So any money that you borrow, you're going to get charged a fee, because the bank or the institution that's giving you the money is basically giving you money that you do not actually have at a point in time when you feel that you need it. For example, if you feel like you want to buy a house now and you really want to live in a house that belongs to you, you either need to have 900,000 if your house is 900,000 rand, or you go to the bank and say, listen, I really would like 900,000 rand right now so I can buy that house, but I don't really have it. So can you give it to me? And they will be like, sure thing, we'll give it to you, but we'll give it to you at an interest rate of 10.5. So that's basically what it is that you actually are going to be paying the bank back for borrowing you money when you didn't actually have it, right? Okay, perfect. Once you have that, you now are in a light where you understand, Guti, you have debt and you need to actually deal with it. I think the second thing that you could potentially do after knowing that is going through your bank statement and being realistic about where you are actually wasting money that you could be allocating as additional payments into your debts, right? Once you've identified this amount of money, the next thing that you need to do is to select a debt reduction strategy. For me, there's 3 debt reduction strategies. I know that 2 are the ones that are common and everybody speaks about them. The one is called the snowball debt reduction strategy. And basically, this is one where if you need motivation or you've got a very small room to maneuver around. So you've got a small amount that you can work with as the money that you probably have been wasting on data, on takeouts, on alcohol, on girlfriends, or on friends, or on family, or on what we call alcohol, whatever it is that you've been wasting that money on. If you've got a very small room, let's say for instance, if you actually look at your bank statement, you realize you've got a little bit of like maybe 2,000 rand extra that you could potentially allocate to something else, then you could look at what we call the snowball debt reduction strategy. And basically, this is paying off the smallest amount, not the least expensive, the smallest amount. So let's say, for instance, you have a gym membership that you owe and it's like 1,500, but they say to you pay a minimum monthly amount of 150. Instead of paying 150, take the entire 2,000 rand and just settle that damn thing, man. finish it off. Now you've released yourself from that debt, number one, but you've also released yourself of paying 150 Rand every single month to an institution that's going to take you like 3 years to pay off 1,500 Rand, right? So that's the snowball effect. And literally print these things out, put them on your fridge if you must, and cancel it so that it shows that one of your debts is gone. Because that's a mental thing that you're going to be doing to yourself, is realizing that you actually are starting to get rid of the debt that you've got, right? The other strategy that you can use is called the Avalanche Strategy. And the Avalanche Strategy says you need to start paying a little bit more money into your most expensive debt. Now remember, the most expensive debt is not always the largest debt. So let's say, for instance, somebody like who has maybe 500,000 Rand on a home loan, but at 10.3% of an interest rate. And then somebody who's got a credit card of maybe like 60,000 Rand, but they're being charged 27% on that credit card. That would make the credit card the most expensive debt, which is the interest that you're actually being charged. Now, the Avalanche Strategy says, tackle that goddamn thing and put more money into that, because the quicker you pay it off, the less interest that you actually pay, which means that the amount that you're putting in additional to the minimum amount that they said you must pay every single month will go to tackle the actual money that you actually owe, and not necessarily the interest portion of it, right? Because what banks generally do is that with unsecured lending, what they will do is they will increase the interest that they charge you on it, so that in case you default, there's no asset they can come fetch. They can't fetch their holiday, the holiday you had in Durban, or they can't fetch, you know, the expensive champagne that you drank at the birthday party you threw yourself with a personal loan, right? So what they do is they charge you a lot of interest, so that if you've already used that money and it's gone, there's no asset attached to it, they can get as much money out of you as possible from charging you a higher interest, right? The next thing that you need to be, the third debt strategy that I will include is getting what is called a side job. And I know this sounds crazy, but at the same time, it's not just about getting a side hustle or getting an additional income stream. It's getting an additional income stream that you are attaching to your debt. So let's say, for instance, you've got 3 different types of debt. Maybe you've got a credit card debt, you've got a personal loan, and perhaps you've got a car loan, right? I would say get yourself 3 additional incomes. They don't have to be huge incomes. They don't have to be bringing you in like 10,000 Rand. Even if they bring you an additional 2,000 Rand each every single month, attach each one of those to each single debt that you owe. So you kind of have to ring fence the amount, because let's be honest, most of us, when we do get additional income, we behave like the South African government, right? We take all the money, we put it in one pot, and then we want to distribute from that pot. But while we're distributing from that pot, some of the money goes to corruption, some of the money goes to setting up what do they call these inquiries. They go to the Zondo inquiry, they go to the whatever inquiry, and they just become mismanaged funds and misused funds, and it really just does not make sense, right? Or they get allocated to departments where they shouldn't even get allocated to. So that's what a lot of us do when we get additional income. Instead of taking that income and allocating it to one debt and finishing off one debt or reducing one debt aggressively, what we do is we then take maybe 30%, maybe I'll pay 30% and put it into that debt, and then the rest of the 70% you're buying data, you're going takeouts, you're splashing, you're spoiling yourself because, oh my God, you deserve it, right? We all deserve it, right? But the reality is that you need to ring fence if you're going to be aggressively trying to get rid of your debt. So it's very, very important that you do that. Then the other thing that you need to do is you then need to protect yourself from unintended debt. That debt that you did not go out there asking for, the debt that you did not put in an application form. You're walking down the stairs from your job, there you slip and you fall and you break your damn ankle. And then medical aid says, ooh, we don't cover the brace or the boot that you've got to wear. Now you got to pay out of your pocket for that boot. That is unintended debt, because you might put it on your credit card, or you might get a loan to buy that boot, and unfortunately it becomes just excessive debt that just comes out of nowhere. Family members also get you into that kind of unintended debt, right? So you need to protect yourself from this kind of debt. Number one, you do this by having an emergency fund. So even when you've got debt, you need to make sure that you still maintain your rainy fund, your emergency fund, so that if something like this happens, you tap into the emergency fund and you carry on your life without any financial disturbances. So you don't actually feel it when it comes to your month-to-month budget. Yes, you will see a ditch in your emergency fund, but it's okay. You will keep paying to the emergency fund every single month so that you do not actually feel it, right? The other thing that you need to do is sometimes you do get yourself in a situation where you get retrenched from work, the company closes down, then you need to make sure that the credit that you've got has what we call credit protection. Guys, it is so important. And some of us sometimes take credit protection without even knowing it. So go back to all your loans and your loan contracts and check if you've got credit protection on any of those loans. Because if you do get retrenched or the company closes down and you're sitting at home thinking, oh my freak me Lord, how am I going to pay for all these things? You might just find that you've got credit cover or credit protection that should kick in if you get retrenched, if you get permanently disabled or temporarily disabled for whatever reason it is. But you've got to read what the policy document says, because credit protection is an insurance product, which means that you need to read what it says it will pay out on and what it will not pay out on. It is very, very important, guys. And then one of the last but not least things that I would say you need to do is do not take up any more credit. If you are fighting credit, it just doesn't make sense, guys. And really, one of the things that I really would also really discourage you from doing is that when you are in debt and you're trying to get out of debt, especially your debt that you cannot manage, you need not to even think of falling pregnant. Do not have unprotected sex. And when you do fall pregnant, really look at other options, because a child is not going to help you when it comes to debt. Because what you're going to do is, as much as people say, yeah, izinto zizohlangana, no, things do not hlangana automatically. You make them hlangana. And generally when you're making them hlangana is that you are prioritizing your child and you're forgetting that you've got debt, and then your debt goes into arrears, and then you start owing a lot of money because they start charging you interest on a whole lot of other things, and that really doesn't work. So, but that's a video for another day.